This is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. It is Obi-Wan Kenobi early Wednesday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after chanting and exploring the Heart of Wisdom Sutra. Together. The noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, the archetype of love and peace. And behold, there is an editing opportunity. Okay, so Avalokiteshvara, real or imagined, is an archetype of love and peace. Now here, let us explore a dark irony. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including people, including meditation teachers. Meditation teachers that will tell us to actively focus and actively analyze. The only way to do that is in reliance upon our dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortici. When we overwork the front of our brain, we cannot help but trigger our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression, which I'm sure you will agree are the opposite of love, of love and peace. So how do we follow in the footsteps of the archetype of enlightenment? No, I'm not talking about repressing our emotions. That's a dead end. The question is not what do we feel? The question is what is guiding our choices and utterances and deeds. So what is the solution to this predicament? Glad you asked. Excuse me one moment. Let's see here. I want to check something. I'm just not really pleased with an illustration that I had done for me. Let's see. Please bear with me. I'm going to tap button 9. Whoops, that's not it. Let's try that again. I'm going to tap button. There it is. And here we go. Really? Well, okay. So much for that. Let's go back to button 7. So, how do we escape the trap wherein our choices, utterances, and deeds are guided by the front of our brain, when they're guided by our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression? Simple. Instead of practicing active focus, we practice passive mindfulness. Well, what is that? Is that double talk? No. You see, every time we exhale, we are already wired to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which could be described as the hub of our sympathetic nervous system. It is evolved. Well, and it's to help us to notice in a very special way. In what way? Well, we'll explore that right now. Let's chant. While practicing the deeply vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting yoga of Prajna Paramita, the perfection of wisdom. So, every time we inhale, we are optimized to notice, to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, all of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring. What do we do with all that stuff that we notice? We meditate. And how do we do that? Every time we exhale, we are already wired to automatically access both the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, can be described as the hub of our parasympathetic nervous system. They have evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even less solid, at least for a moment, at least to a certain degree, until our next inhalation and the cycle begins afresh. So every breath we have a choice. Do we continue with our exhausting habit of actively fighting against our own autonomic nervous system to actively focus and actively analyze, or do we passively cooperate with our autonomic nervous system to simply, to vulnerably notice and relax in harmony with our inhalations and our exhalations? Let's continue with our chanting. Looked upon the five skandhas and seeing they were empty of self-existence. So skandhas is, let me just throw a bracket in here. See if this still fits. There we go. Looked upon the five skandhas and or aggregates and seeing they were empty of self-existence. Said here Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So what do we mean by empty of self-existence? So super easy. Number one, what do we mean by self-existence? As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of our body or pleasure or pain or intensity or impulse or awareness could feel fleetingly. Let me back up. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever aggregates we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel at least a little bit less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and less solid. What do we mean by that? Emptiness. If we take emptiness literally, it's going to lead us into a realm of bizarro theories. But if we take emptiness figuratively, it's going to make perfect sense. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever aggregates we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. When I was in 4th grade, I was taught that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about the illusion of the sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel as non-graspable as a could feel non-graspable. Think of it this way: if we were to throw a blanket on the grass and lay on our back on the blanket on the grass and look at the blue sky and reach for it with fingers splayed and formed our hands into fists, so we tried to grasp the sky and pulled our hands to our face, opened our hands up, would we see any blue? No, because the illusion of the azure sky is literally non-graspable to us humans, conventionally speaking. So the sky is an example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void. So all we're saying when we say empty, it means, for instance, after a workout, I get thirsty. I want a glass of water. If I reach for a glass that's full of water, I'm delighted. If I reach for a glass that's empty of water, there's no water for me to drink. So, as we relax into our exhalation, that whatever we notice, whatever aggregates we noticed during our previous inhalation, feel less defining. They feel empty of stress. They feel empty of permanence. They feel empty of identity. There's a difference between saying this body is experiencing pain versus saying I hurt. There is a completely different way of just defining ourselves by our experience, as opposed to viewing our experience as something fleeting and temporary. Let's continue with the chanting. So I'm going to move a verb because I think it chants better that way. Okay, here we go. Looked upon the vast goodness or aggregates and seeing they were empty of self-existence, said, here Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. Whatever is form is emptiness, whatever is emptiness is form. The same holds for feeling, appraisal, impulse, and awareness. Feeling, whether something is pleasurable or painful, rating the intensity of that pleasure and pain, our knee-jerk survival instinct in response to that pleasure and pain, and our awareness of the whole kit and caboodle. If form, feeling, appraisal, and impulse were playing a football on the pit, playing football, awareness would be the pitch or the field upon which they are playing or running or kicking. Here Shari together. Here Shari Putra Dharmas of phenomena are defined by emptiness, not by the dualities of birth or destruction, purity or defilement, completeness or deficiency. As we relax into our exhalation, whether at birth or destruction we might have noticed during our previous inhalation, could feel could feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and less graspable. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever purity or defilement we might have perceived during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel a little bit less stressful, a little bit less permanent, a little bit less defining, a little bit less tangible. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever completeness or deficiency we might have noticed or recalled or imagined or conceived of during our previous inhalation could both fleetingly less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and less tangible. Let's continue. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no appraisal, no impulse, and no awareness. So, what does that mean? Where do we feel emptiness? We feel emptiness as we exhale. Therefore, as we inhale, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever yes form or yes feeling or yes appraisal or yes impulse or yes awareness we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as if there was no stressful form, no permanent feeling, no defining appraisal, no tangible impulse, no awareness to grasp, at least for a moment, until our next inhalation and the whole process resets. Let's continue. And now we're going to play with the 3 circles of emptiness: the organ of perception, the object of perception, and the act of perception. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, and no mind. No shape, no sound, no smell, no taste, no feeling, and no thought. No element of perception from mind to conceptual consciousness. So here is how this would work out. I want to make sure that my face isn't obscuring that too horribly. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so let's put this here. So, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever mind we might have noticed during our previous, let's try this again. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever mind or thoughts or consciousness we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel a little bit less stressful, a little bit less permanent, a little bit less defining, a little bit less tangible. Let's continue. No causal link from ignorance to old age and death, or end of causal link from ignorance to old age and death. So, there are 2 types of people in the world: the uptight and the groovy. The uptight, kind of like grumpy Mace Windu, are all about being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And these people will try to coerce us into doing what they think is the right thing, with promises of reward and threats of punishment, which pull us deeper into the swamp of duality. However, there's always a minority who, instead of being grumpy or groovy, kind of like Qui-Gon Jinn, and people who are walking in the footsteps of Qui-Gon Jinn choose to traverse the path of being flexible, loving, flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. And on that path, we look at the Eightfold Path of enlightenment and realize that in the Eightfold Path, which is a complete path, there's no mention of karma. There's no mention of punishment. There's no mention of reward. But 50% of the Eightfold Path pertains to love. Loving intentions, loving communication, loving conduct, and even loving commerce. So let's go back a few pages. When we actively focus and actively analyze and trigger our amygdala to be aggressive and anxious, we're not going to be loving. We're going to be cruel. We're going to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. However, when we cooperate, when we passively cooperate with our sympathetic nervous systems as we inhale and our parasympathetic nervous system as we exhale, not only is our amygdala calmed, but our anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy, is gently, non-neurotically stimulated. The more we practice mindfulness and meditation in harmony with our autonomic nervous system, the more we can't help but move from empathy. The more our choices and utterances and deeds are guided not by contrived calculations or wild scatterness, but instead by love's deeply centered spontaneity, which is described as right action or right effort or effortless effort, or doing without doing, or wu wei, or going with the flow, or being in the zone. Let's continue. No stress, no source, no relief, no path. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever stress we might have noticed during our previous inhalation fleetingly feels a little bit less intense, a little bit less permanent, a little bit less defining, a little bit less solid. No knowledge, no attainment, and no non-attainment. We don't need to be neurotic on the path. There's no need for us to, well, let me put it this way. Practicing the Buddha's path in a manner that is rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel is like making love in the name of rigidity. It might be a fun way to spend an afternoon, but it's not going to get you anywhere near closer to your goal. So we have to practice non-neurotically from a place of love and peace. That love and peace is the effortless byproduct of passively cooperating with our inhalation that notices and our exhalation that relaxes. Together. Therefore, Shariputra without attainment, Bodhisattvas take refuge in Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom, and live without walls of the mind. The peace we desire comes from practicing without rigidity, comes from noticing and relaxing vulnerably and passively in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. Without walls of the mind and thus without fears. We see through delusion and attain the mastery of awareness and release that is nirvana. So what does mastery mean? Mastery means getting so good at something that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. What are examples of mastery in our lives? Well, from childhood, we've been trained to master the art of using the toilet instead of pooping in our pants. We have mastered the art of brushing our teeth and tying our shoes and riding a bike and learning how to read and write and do arithmetic. All these things we've mastered as children. The Buddha taught that we could master his eightfold path of enlightenment in as little as 7 days, because simply by practicing the seventh and eighth folds of noticing and relaxing in harmony with our inhalations and exhalations, the remaining 6 folds of viscerally noticing change, of loving, and of allowing that love to help us go with the flow is accomplished automatically as a fringe benefit of just setting some time aside once every 12 hours or so to notice and relax in harmony with our breathing. Let's continue. All Buddhas, past, present, and future, also take refuge in Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom, and realize the unexcelled perfect mastery of love and letting go, that is enlightenment. So any idiot can notice and relax in harmony with their breathing and feel a little bit more peace. But when that bears fruit and causes us to experience the highest love, which is the spontaneous and uncontrived byproduct of noticing and relaxing in harmony with our breathing, that's what separates a Buddha from a Bodhisattva. And remember, this can be done in as little as 7 days. Let's chant. We should therefore know that great mantra of mind protection of... We should therefore know that... We should therefore know the great mantra of mind protection of Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom, the great knowledge mantra, the unexcelled mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, which heals all suffering and is true, not false. So, we're being told here So we're being told here that the perfection of wisdom is the ultimate mantra. So we're using the term mantra here, not literally, but figuratively. Let's look at 3 statements. The first statement is literal. John is tenacious. Now we're going to create it into a simile. John is as tenacious as a doggy with a bone. And now let's turn that from a simile into a metaphor. John is a dog with a bone. Now, does that mean John prances about on all fours, determined to sniff the asses of strangers? No, because that's frowned upon in polite society. It's simply a metaphor describing John's tenacious nature. Similarly, when we describe the perfection of wisdom as being like a magic mantra, we're using it as a metaphor. We don't need rituals of protection. We don't need rituals of acquisition. We don't need dedications of merit. We don't need offerings. We don't need to practice invocations. We don't need to worship. We don't need to believe. All we need to do is cooperate with our own autonomic nervous system in the most wonderful way, because when we do, we wind up using all the organelles of our central nervous system in the most sustainable way. Together, the mantra prajapanamita, the perfection of wisdom, is thus spoken. Gate gate para samgate buddhi swaha. Here's a literal translation. Gone perfectly, and completely gone to liberation, may it be so. And now a figurative translation. May all beings master releasing perfectly, releasing, and completely. Let's see. Take two. May all beings master releasing perfectly, and completely releasing into freedom. So now you have the basic idea of how to practice the entire path of enlightenment. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let us comfortably sit. Let us sit and breathe and notice and relax. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophy or meditation of Buddhism, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about every 8 minutes or so. Many years ago, when I was living in a Vietnamese monastery, the Roshi kept scolding me and saying, "Oh, you're so." Let me try it without mimicking her. She used to scold me and saying that you're so greedy for enlightenment, because I was really quite neurotic about it. So here's the thing. We might meditate because we want enlightenment. That's fine. But here's the irony. The closer we are to enlightenment, the less concerned we are about it. So if you are authentically noticing and relaxing in harmony with your breathing at least once every 12 hours or so, then you don't have to worry about whether you're enlightened or not. Just sit and breathe and notice and relax. And buckle up, because you're in for a wild ride. You could passively notice all manner of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. It's not our job to control our experience. It's our job to simply notice without labeling, to simply notice and relax. Remember, we don't have to force those things. We're already wired to notice and relax in harmony with our inhalations and our exhalations. All we need to do is go along for the ride. If you or I were to go to a theater and watch a play, if we confused ourselves with the producer or the director or the playwright or the thespian, we would have a pretty rotten time. But if we simply remembered that we're just a member of the audience, sitting on a chair, sucking on a piece of hard candy, watching the antics of the people on stage, we'll have a much better time. Same thing with meditation. We don't control what we perceive, emote, intend, or reason, recall, or imagine. We just notice and relax vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. We don't have to tell stories to justify our emotions. We don't have to say, well, I'm angry because I'm so compassionate over the suffering that someone else is creating for themselves. Let us stay out of stories. Stories is exhausting, and it indulges our rigid and controlling tendencies. Let us content ourselves to simply notice and relax in harmony with our breathing in the manner vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting. Some people actively focus on their breath. Some people actively focus on their posture. Some people actively contemplate a puzzle or a riddle. Regardless of what labels we use or in which languages those labels are written, that's still going to excite our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. The only way to calm that bad boy is for us to passively cooperate with our autonomic nervous system by means of passively noticing and viscerally relaxing in coordination with our inhalations and our exhalations. And if we do that, everything else will take care of itself. We'll still have to breathe. We'll still have to drink water. We'll still have to eat food. We'll still age. We'll still die. But our journey down the conveyor belt of life will be infinitely as meaningful as it is loving and peaceful. looking for questions, looking for questions. The moment you have a, well, that's weird. Anywho. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible due to the generosity of viewers, just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening recitation, explanation, and practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.